This is such an inspiring episode. I want to become an engineer tomorrow.
No.
I know. Hey everyone, today we have ChiWei from One Dog Woof, and we're going to be talking about kind of going outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And also just continue, not just being comfortable with what you know, but also
Pushing yourself.
pushing yourself. I do that every morning at the gym.
I know.
When we're talking about crafting, how do you experience it? Because you were telling me a story about a sweater, and I think everyone would really appreciate that.
So
story.
I wanted to design a Fair Isle yoke sweater.
Sure.
And it was very overwhelming. You know, you see very complicated designs out there. You're like, I have no idea how to start. And then you're just kind of stuck. So what I ended up doing was I used vel-luxe and I made a yoke sweater, all in yellow.
I saw that sweater.
Right?
Yes.
And it's solid.
Yes.
And it was single crochet. And everything was stuff I knew. So the only thing I had to learn was the yoke construction and the math for just that part of it. And then that was done. And then I just released the Fading Waves cowl, which is Fair Isle, but it was Fair Isle in rows. I know how to do rows, I know how to knit, but now I'm adding one new thing, which is Fair Isle knitting or stranded knitting. So I watch my YouTube videos and I learn how to hold, knitting is like two and then two yarns, two needles. And so that was the one thing that I wanted to learn.
Right.
So now I know yoke and I know Fair Isle. Now the next step, making a Fair Isle yoke sweater doesn't seem so...
Combining the two pieces of knowledge that you've gotten from your basic projects.
Right.
So it's not trying to climb out Mount Everest. It's
one step at a time.
Yeah, it's like climbing two tiny hills that maybe equal the amount of Mount Everest. I know that I experienced this a lot when I was working at the Line Brand Yarn studio. People would come in and just be so overwhelmed because they were trying to do something. They wanted to make a cable. They knew knit and purl, but they wanted to do a cable sweater.
Right.
And I'm just take a beat, you know? And I think that as crafters, we get so excited because new colors, new yarn, and I want to do this and I want to do that. But I think that it's taking that time to really...
Yeah, so if you want to learn cables, you want to
Right.
make this cable sweater, again, you can learn to work a single cable, right? There's a lot of headbands out there that's a single cable. That's how I started. I made a headband with a single cable, and that was hard.
Yeah.
And I started 5 times, but
Yeah.
then I got through it and I was like, okay, I know cables.
Got it.
Now I'm going to make a sweater without a cable.
Right.
And then maybe at some point in the future, I'll make a cable sweater. So you'll get there.
Right. Do you have any other instances where you've kind of taken two different skills?
Knitting in itself, because I'm a crochet blogger and my grandmother tried to teach me how to knit for years and years and I just never got to it.
So what kind of pushed you to knitting?
I like the look of knitting in the drape, and sometimes knitting uses less yarn than crochet.
True.
So if I'm limited in yarn, then I want to use a looser stitch. And again, it's this idea of lifelong learning where I don't want to stay in my comfort zone. If you are fulfilled in what you do now, that's great. I just like learning new things and I want to keep doing that because it fulfills me. And again, it's overwhelming, right? Because a lot of people will say, well, I just want to succeed and I want to do this big thing. And again, it's these little goals where before I knit a sweater, I have to learn how to knit and purl and understand what goes into a stitch that makes it a knit and a purl. So I just sat down with YouTube, 3 hours in YouTube, and
The tube of you, it always comes back.
yes, it does.
It always comes back to here.
And then just force myself to sit down and say, this is my goal. Tonight, I am going to, if it kills me, learn how to knit.
What's your long-term knitting goal that we can hold you all accountable?
A knitting goal.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't done my Fair Isle sweater yet.
Okay.
So that is up there. I think, in terms of a business, you have business goals, you have design goals.
Sure.
Definitely the raglans and the Fair Isles and really understanding set-in sleeves, that's a new one for me. It almost goes into fashion, right? And I'm an engineer, I'm not into fashion at all.
Right.
So that's kind of the engineer in me that's I can put two squares together, but I want to understand why it works.
I love that you're an engineer because I love talking to people that are knitters or they are crocheters and they were a doctor or a scientist. And like, there's always a way in what people do in their everyday job to shockingly tie it back.
Yes,
to
always.
crochet and knitting.
Every time.
Like, you know, like, it makes sense to me. You're an engineer. Like you're looking at numbers. You're looking at like how things go together.
Very structured and step by step.
Yeah, like we're not just like all boringly crafty. Like we have backgrounds that I think tie us all.
And we find ways to use our strengths
Yeah.
to tie into what we do and what makes it unique for us. But then beyond that, what we want to do to grow, you know, if I were an engineer still, I would have to grow those skills as well.
Yes.
But now I'm using those skills in a new environment, so let's grow these skills in the same way.
I think that that's really great. I think that, you know, looking at your strengths and applying them to your crafting
Right.
and to your life, and kind of it's just like one big like happy just.
Well, we hope it's happy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what yarn does.
That's true.
So,
And if it doesn't make you happy, you are watching the wrong show right now. ChiWei, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming by and just kind of, I think, like opening people's minds up to, you know, just setting goals.
Setting goals.
And being realistic in those goals
Yeah.
and making yourself feel good in those goals. Because I think in crafting and in making garments and not getting down on yourself when something goes wrong.
Right.
Like, I think that's important. And that's important to be successful.
yes. That's
So
right.
with that, let's toast
Cheers.
to success.
Yes, that's right.
Remember, guys, to like and subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up. And you can follow ChiWei right here. All of her information will be here. We like to ask our audience a question so
Okay.
they can feel involved in the episode and feel like they're sitting right there next to you.
Okay.
Do you have a question that you'd like to know from our audience viewers?
Whether you find knitting or crochet to be faster if you do both.
Ooh, interesting. I would like to know too. Leave your comments below and we look forward to hearing from you. Bye, everybody. So I was like, that is a bold choice of a sweater.
I had a lot of
love that.
people just kind of
Yeah, well,
up to
you
me.
do that with vel-luxe. Vel-luxe is that type of like, don't be in a bad mood when you're wearing that yarn because like
people will just come
touch
up to you and-
Like,